Welcome to Shanna's and Jamie's Tea Talks.
This is a series all about our experience as healthcare students. I'm a medical student and Jamie's a pharmacy student. Our experience and the ups and downs of it, some tips and tricks we've learned along the way about work-life balance, trying to strive at our extracurriculars, as well as trying to do well academically. So stay tuned for more. Today we're going to talk about failure and resilience. I think as much as we want to be perfect humans, everyone fails and experiences failure, and it always sucks. It never feels fun to fail, but I think it's important to remember that every single person will fail, and there's always ways to change your mindset towards failure and also get over it quickly. I think we wanted to talk about failure and resilience because I think that's a really normal experience for people who have always been high achievers, that when they first start pharmacy school and medical school, this is the first time that they might not be the top of their class. They're
Even
not
undergrad too, like from transitioning from high school to university.
When you're in places where you fail more, it's probably because you're in a place where you're challenging yourself more. If you're never failing, that might mean you're like way too much in your comfort zone, and so you actually want to be taking enough risk that there is a chance of failure. And so I think it means you're doing something right. There's that quote people say, like, if you're the smartest person in the room, you're in the wrong room. You should be somewhere where you're don't have to be bottom of the list, but you are somewhere that you're feeling challenged and stuff. So that's it's a good sign to realize that sometimes you're failing in resilience. And I think it's also important to remember, as a medical student, as a pharmacy student, you're still in the learning stage, so it's expected for you to not get everything right the first time. So if you're thinking your preceptor tells you to go see this patient and you're supposed to do all the RESP exam, and then you do everything, and then they later on the quiz you say, did you do this? Did you do this? Did you do this? And you're like, oh shoot, and you got that wrong. It's fine, because you are not expected to get that perfect. You're still in training. I think even people who've been doing this for 20 years, they're gonna forget something. They probably have gotten so used to it that they're less likely to forget, but it's possible. And then also realizing that sometimes when people give you really critical feedback and you feel like you're a failure, this is times they're actually wanting to teach it to you. So again, like they're saying like, oh, they're trying to remind you that you didn't do this and this, but next time you should do it because it's a really critical to patient care. So I think those are our overall general scenarios where you can experience like micro failures.
We'd both like to share like some of our failures and how we learn from it and how we improve for next time. So I guess for me, I wanted to share about like my first research experience. It's back in like undergrad, second term, first year. I was hearing that all of my friends are trying to get research positions, and I felt like I was behind, because some would be like, oh, I already got one, or like, oh, I'm like already in contact with the professor, I'm gonna meet them soon. And so I was panicking. I was like worried that, oh, what if I'm like behind compared to others? So I was like sending like lots of emails, like 10 to like 15 or even more. Like some professors were nice enough to like send me feedback or kindly reject by saying, oh, they're not accepting students for this year, or if my skill set didn't fit what they're looking for. And some, they just didn't even respond back. So it was definitely difficult for me, because I felt like I had enough experience and skills to excel as like the research student, but not receiving any responses back or saying that I'm not good enough. It was definitely it had like a huge impact on me. Like I was like rethinking about myself, like rethinking about my abilities. But after each email, like for professors that emailed back, I was just reflecting on what I could improve on for my next email. So each email like was like improved. Like it wasn't the same copy paste. If one didn't work out, I would just reflect and think about how I can improve for the next email, and so on. So eventually I did land on a research position, and for me, like it was life-changing, because I felt like in the beginning I was just emailing random professors because I was nervous and I felt like I needed to secure a position. But I guess after hearing back that I wasn't suitable, I was reflecting on why am I not suitable? And it could be because my interests don't align with their interests, or my skill set doesn't really align with what they're looking for. So just finding like a supervisor that truly understands your interests and also aligns with what you're hoping to gain out of it. I wouldn't have learned it unless I've gotten these rejections, so it's definitely a good learning experience.
The email is actually an art. that no one teaches you, and then you kind of learn from experience, that we're expected to know. So I think it's a lot of pressure we put ourselves to know how to do it. But yeah, it's just thinking about like learning how to apply, how to market yourself. So actually the first time I applied to medical school was actually from high school to undergrad. I tried to apply to these programs where they integrate your bachelor's with your medical school. So when you get to this program, you would fast track yourself to an MD without having to apply to med school. And I was like, that was ideal because at that point I had known I was quite interested in medicine, and I thought that was the way to go. And at some point I had gotten into this incorrect mindset that I had to go into one of these programs to get to medical school. Completely forgetting that most people out there actually just go to normal undergrad and get to medical school, and then there's all these alternate paths. But at some point, so that would be maybe my tips of failure, is realizing that when we had you might be putting too much hopes into, not too much hopes, but you're putting too much pressure in this one scenario, and you're making it your entire world and forgetting there's other ways to do this. Yeah, I was pretty devastated because when I applied, I interviewed one of the schools, but the rest of them I didn't interview, none of them accepted me. It was like, I was devastated. I felt like, I'm not ready for going to medicine. This is actually like a pretty funny story, because I remember being just like so crushed by it, because I had just felt like I had worked so hard my entire high school experience. So I'm like a pre-planner. So like when I was in grade or whatever, I was like starting to think like, oh, I have to take PCT and I have to do this and I have to do this. And so I was like really working hard consistently. So it was a devastating blow, thinking, did I not work hard enough? Did I do this wrong? Am I not good enough compared to all these other people that got it? Kind of that same idea. I think once failure starts really getting to you, once you start thinking really personally. So if you're thinking like, it's because I'm not good enough, as opposed to just thinking it was a scenario thing. And I definitely think it's like really easy to get into that mindset. And so I don't think anyone ever stops doing that completely. I think most of us just, as with time, we just get faster at getting out of that. So yeah, I took it really personally, and I was like, I remember being really like upset about it. I was like, I didn't get into my dream school, and I just like came to calculus one day, and I was like super mad about it. And my desk partner in calculus was like, he actually turned to me, and he was kind of like, why are you being like this? He basically called me out for being a brat, which I totally was being a brat about, right? He was like, you know, you don't realize that some people are just struggling to get into our local university. I was like, I had a bit of shame realizing that I wasn't being grateful, that I had all these opportunities, and then forgetting that other people have, you know, bigger problems than I do, about like, sorry, not bigger problems, but just are more stressed to a different level. And I'm just being stressed about like that little bit of like that top percentage where I already have a lot of great opportunities in my life. And some people, because of their life circumstances, it's just hard enough to, you know, get that foot in the door, get to some post-secondary. So remembering that bigger picture and how much I should be grateful for what I already have was really helpful as a tip. And then also, thanks someone giving you a little like whack in the face, basically telling you you're kind of being a brat if you're just complaining about it too much. Like, I think, you know, all friends are gonna let you vent a little bit, and I think that's meaningful. Everyone is allowed to
express their feelings.
And so I think if anyone tells you like don't complain at all, I don't think that's healthy either, because your feelings are being invalidated. That's not gonna feel good. But I do think at some point reminding you that you can't just continuously dwell on that is kind of it's not being helpful. You're just stuck in this endless pit of despair. And so I would say, like, you know, also going off that, realizing that the longer you spend in the despair about what you've lost and what you can no longer change, you're wasting that time that you could now be going forward and changing that. So, you know, I didn't get into BSMD program. Well, you know what? That's fine. Then, you know what? Actually, instead of just dwelling over that, which I can change because there's all these amazing qualified candidates out there, then I should think, well, okay, well, I just want to go the regular MD route. Let's start researching, what do I need to do? What's the best normal undergrad for me to go to that will help me get there? You know, like, think about all these other opportunities I have out there.
And just set a time for you to be sad, express your feelings, vent, up to a certain point. So for example, you can set a date for tomorrow. So I'll just think about it. I'll just be sad until tomorrow. And afterwards, you can start fresh. And as Shanna mentioned, the earlier you move on, there's more, you're giving yourself more time to be engaged in new research or new opportunities or self-improvement.
I think going on that one, realizing that the biggest thing about this failure is not the actual failure itself. Like, usually other people aren't judging us. It's usually us judging ourselves. And that story we're telling ourselves, we're telling, I'm not good enough, I'm stupid, I'm whatever. And it often generates from us. And so what is helpful, so as James said, like talking to a friend, like, they realize that your friend, if they're your true friend, they're not going to be like, you didn't get this opportunity, and now I don't think you're cool, and I'm not going to be your friend, right? People don't really care. They genuinely think about you as a whole person and your character and all that. And so they see you as like a continuous being instead of that one achievement. So trying to think like, how would, if my friend, this happened to my friend, how would I see my friend, right? If Jamie came to me and she's like, I didn't get this scholarship, I'm like, you know what? That was brave of you to even apply. Or that's great. You know, that's okay. There's all these other things that you do that are well. And so trying to be that same amount of kindness I would to a friend, to myself. Harder, you know, easier said than done, but yeah.
And then speaking of like opportunities and job rejections, like sometimes there's maybe you just don't have the skill that they're looking for. It's not necessarily, oh, you're not as good or you're not competent enough. Maybe they're just looking for a certain skill set that maybe you don't have, or maybe the job isn't just suitable for your personality, and that also means that maybe you'll excel in a different area or different expertise. So don't be too hard on yourself.
So if they didn't take you, that's their loss.
Exactly.
Or it's preventing you from going into somewhere that you would be unhappy. Who knows, right? And so I think a big one is being open to sharing your failures. We're both really big fans of Brene Brown and being vulnerable. And being vulnerable with each other, I think, is something we learned. I have definitely not been that good at it until starting to be recently, learning that it's actually power to be brave enough to share in that experience. Because I used to think, if I'm a strong person, I will never share with anybody. I don't want to, basically, I didn't feel like I wanted to burden people with listening to my story of complaining, basically. I didn't want to be the complaining person and everyone just has to listen to me. That just felt stupid. But then I also realized it's a privilege. I feel privileged if a friend is deciding to share with me with their struggle. I feel very happy, and so I realized if I think about the other way, I'm also wanting to open up and share a little piece of me with my friend and be very honest. I think there's no need to think like that I'm perfect as a person, and there's no need to think your friend is perfect, and just like sharing each other's flaws and learning from each other is a way to actually like connect and be more genuine.
Yeah.
And then you realize how many people are actually experiencing the same things.
It's actually a lot. You're not alone. And also in terms of like providing feedback and receiving feedback, I feel like it's really important for the receiver to always be open to the constructive feedback. Like never take it personally. Like if your friend tells you like it may not be positive, but they're telling you because they want the best for you. Like they're not so don't take it personally, and just take it all in. You don't have to take all of them, but just listen, take it in, and then later on just self-reflect and see like how you can further improve, or like how you can utilize these feedback that you get. I feel like the people that actually know you, like friends, family, they are able to give you genuine advice, and sometimes to get advice, it comes at a cost, right? For example, like for courses or assessments, we're paying to get feedback, but the people around you, like friends, family, they're providing you because they care for you. So I feel like it's important to always be open.
I think one thing that I've learned recently is that if the person that you're always trying to go for help with is the only thing they're ever telling you is I told you so, I might run away, because a true friend doesn't do that. I think it's okay to do that. Definitely it's great. You do that in jest, like we're talking personal life, bad decisions. Everyone has those, and your bestie is that one who's always like, why did you not listen to me? And that's a bit different, but I mean in terms of like bigger decisions and things that were really difficult for you. If you're really upset that, you know, you applied to this thing and you didn't get it, and your friend is telling you like, I told you so, you wouldn't have gotten it. Like I might question that friendship a little bit, because in the end we need to realize that we're just supporting each other to like take chances and stuff. And so that's something I've learned recently. I think, again, going off this until I told you so, my friend Jeremy said this really amazing tip that I still remember. Is he said like, because I was like, oh, I should have done this thing like you told me so, then I would have been fine. And his thing was the right thing, but he said like, no, like never say that like I should have done what you said, because sometimes you take in my feedback, just like you were saying earlier, you take in your feedback, and sometimes we choose to discard because we still have to make our own judgment.
Exactly.
And so I thought that was really powerful, realizing that if I screw up, I'm not gonna keep thinking like I should have done what this person said, or I should have known better. Sometimes you just make those choices, you screw up, and then you learn from it, and then because you wouldn't have known, and sometimes you just have to make those choices and live with it.
Exactly. Like in the end, it's ultimately your choice. You're receiving all these feedback, filtering them out, seeing weighing the pros and cons, and I'm sure the decision you make at that time may have been the best decision. When you reflect back, maybe there could have been like an alternate solution.
Yeah, I guess another tip that I use to change the mood is I like to use humor a lot when I screw up. Not always, when it's appropriate sometimes to just make fun of yourself. So recently I screwed up in a manuscript. I wrote the wrong thing in there. So this is really funny, okay? This is very specific. But I wrote down the name of the clinic, and so they're very similar. So one of the names is Pacific, and the other names is West Coast. And so I was kind of thinking in my brain, to be fair, I think I was writing this at like 2 a.m. when I was like super sleep deprived. Don't do that, right? Write things when you're fresh. Remember what we said about getting enough sleep? So I wrote the wrong thing. And then my supervisor sent me an email. It was like, I was reading the manuscript you sent me, and you had written the wrong, you wrote the wrong clinic. That is not our clinic. It's the other one. And I was like, I mean, that's very understandable, to be fair, because they're very similar. And I started like actually being hard on myself. I was like, I should have been meticulous. Now my supervisor's gonna think I'm dumb because I'm a careless person, whatever. I just like enforced a lot of self-judgment, and then I realized that like really he doesn't care. He just wanted to make sure that was right. And then I, for example, I saw him this early this morning, and then he was like, yeah, he was just making fun of that again. But I realized that I was interpreting that as like, oh, he's gonna judge me, but actually he was like, no, I just didn't want to get a call from my colleagues and say like, hey, this person is pretending to be working at our clinic and totally lying. Like he was like, oh, how did he? And he was just joking, and I just made fun of myself. I was like, yeah, I clearly don't have good control of my English at this point. I need to go back and relearn some of that English. And so it's just, I think like using that time to be humorous is appropriate, and like I think being willing to make fun of yourself a little bit goes a long way.
Yeah, like I feel like for emails especially, like speaking of like communication with supervisors and receiving feedback, it sometimes can seem like they're criticizing you or they're judging you for making that mistake. But like Shanna mentioned, like when she talked to them in person, they're usually just trying to help you out. Like it may have sounded a bit cold or a bit dry in the email, but I mean they're giving you feedback for you to learn. So like we mentioned before, like don't be too hard on yourselves.
I think there's always so much room for misinterpretation when it comes to emails and texts and things, and so
for sure.
Yeah, I definitely like to receive feedback in person if I can, and I also actually like to give feedback to my team. And so I never want them to misinterpret my tone as like telling them like you should do this and this, and so I do like giving teams. So for example, if something went wrong, so for example one of our projects, we later realized like, oh, we really wish that we had done this, and then something had been messed up in the date sheet. I was like, oh, shoot, and we had to like lose that column. And so I was like, oh man, that's a failure. But actually I thought about it, in that point, it's easy to blame that particular person, but I feel like it's never healthy to do that, because we have like a joint responsibility. Yeah. Especially if you're the leader of the team too, right? You have to, it's our job as a team to be double checking each other's work and double checking each other's work. And then also when we're setting up that system that, however we're collecting data or however we're storing it, we should be doing it as a team, trying to make sure we're putting in like checks for mistakes to be caught early. So it's actually like a team responsibility, I feel like. So like thinking of it that way. And so regardless if you're the person who is suffering from that failure and trying not to blame someone, but also if you're the person that you made that mistake, definitely own up to your responsibilities. For sure. No one wants to work with someone who just makes a bajillion excuses for why things didn't work out. And like own up to the part that you actually did, but then also realize that people are going to be forgiving that it was a system problem or a team-based problem. Yeah,
like everyone like makes mistakes. They're not going to fire you, or they're not going to hate you for making that one mistake. If it's recurrent, then that would be a problem. But if you learn from your mistakes, then everything will be fine. Like I feel like common like myth or common struggles that students face is if they make a mistake with their supervisor, then they think, oh, this supervisor hates me, or the supervisor won't like me anymore. But I feel like when supervisors or mentors or whoever is looking at you or judging you or seeing you as a person, they're not looking at just that one incident. They're looking at, they're observing you overall. So that one mistake, it could have an impact, but it's not going to define who you are. So I think that's also important to acknowledge.
Yeah, so I think that's all our tips. Do you have anything else to add?
No, I think that's it for today.
So yeah, thanks so much for listening. I think that was really thorough, and I think that's a really honest conversation.
Yeah, so we were also vulnerable
today.
today.
We're being vulnerable today. But yeah, definitely. Hopefully, some of these tips help people. But yeah, definitely sharing your failures with people, sharing them with your mentees, sharing them with your mentors. There are also people
for sure.
That are willing to give you feedback about how to prevent that, or and then also realizing they're going to be more forgiving than you think they are going to be.
For sure.
People are more forgiving towards you than you are to yourself. So be kind to yourself. Be open to feedback. But own up to what you've done wrong, and then if someone else screws up, be forgiving and take it as a team approach. And I really like Jamie's tip of setting aside a dedicated time, validate your feelings, let yourself feel that feelings, but then move on.
Yeah, I mean, we acknowledge that it's easier said than done, but if you always have it in the back of your head, I'm sure one day it'll help you, or it will become more of a habit once you start practicing this technique.
So if you like this video so far, or any of these videos of the series, give this video a like, give this channel a subscribe. If you want to see more of our awkward selves discuss topics about being in healthcare and also just self-growth that we've had and our experiences, check out more videos. So thanks.
Thank you.